Hey guys, it's Jen. So I am back with another video, finally, and what I wanted to talk to you about today, or what I wanted to do for you, is just recommend some of my favorite astrology books for beginners. So the ones that I recommend to my friends or students or clients, like if they ask me for recommendations, and also some of the ones that I learned with myself many years ago. I started studying astrology and working with it back in 2009. So I have many shelves of books, but I think I have maybe a little less than 10 of them here. And let's get started. I will share with you my top astrology books for beginners. So the one that I have been recommending to my students and friends in more recent times is this one, Amy Herring's Essential Astrology. And I'm not going to go super in depth with each of these books, but I will say that Amy Herring's book, along with another book that I'm about to show you, The Inner Sky by Forrest. These two are great for just learning all the basics in a super accessible, friendly way. Amy Herring, she starts with giving you a general orientation, like the natal chart map. There we go. She'll just kind of give you some idea of what it is you're even looking at and doing here. Then she goes into the planets, and there's a big chunk on those. Actually, a really big chunk on those. At least 60 pages. And then she goes into the signs and the houses, and then gives some tips for putting it all together in some basic chart interpretation techniques. So that's a really great one. Forrest's book, like I said, also great for learning from. This is one of the ones that I learned from back in the day, and it's still great. Forrest is very revered in the field and has written many, many books. So he does something similar, except he starts with the signs. Gives you a general orientation, again, then goes into signs, planets, houses, and some idea of how to put it all together. So either of these are great for starting out. These would probably be my number one, and I can't even really say which would be number one out of these, but this is the one I've been recommending to people the most recently, and is a little bit thicker compared to the Forrest. And then the Forrest one is a great one that I learned from. Okay. So we'll kind of tie them for numbers 1 and 2. The other one that I learned from, that I still recommend and think is like an essential for learning how to read a chart, Arroyo's Chart Interpretation Handbook. The thing that is so beautiful about this is that you're basically getting archetypal keywords. So he will give you an idea of what he kind of starts actually with the elements, talking about the elements, and then from there the 12 signs and what the planets are like, or how you can expect them to express in the 4 different elements and the 12 different signs. And then after that, he gets in the last half of the book, he goes a little bit deeper and starts talking about the houses. But what I really find this book to be great for is like sort of keywords and kind of like giving you a quick, concise, energetic feel for what the planets are like in the different signs or in the different elements, how they might express differently. Stephen Arroyo has a number of other books that also work with this kind of material and other type of material. He's just great all around. But this is a wonderful one to get started with. And if you want to get some basic idea of how a planet in a different element or sign would express, and like compare, especially when you're working with your own chart and then other people's charts, start working with other people's charts, this is a great one for that. Okay, so 3 down. Along those lines, next one I'm going to recommend is this. Bill Tierney is another great author. So many great books. I really love his Aspects and Analysis, I think it's called, but that's out of print. This one is thick, but it is like a deep dive into each of the signs. Like you would get, let me see, I'm going to say each sign has at least 5 pages, maybe more. And it really gives you a feel for what that sign is all about. So if the other ones are kind of like good for general learning and putting together planets with signs, with houses and that kind of thing, this one is just about the signs. But it paints a picture and allows you to go much deeper into the essence of each sign so that you really start to get a feel for it. And by the way, this is sort of a bit of an aside, but I actually wrote a little mini ebook about the 12 signs and kind of following them through the wheel of the year. And you can also get a free copy of that from me if you want to. You can just email me at jennifer.parde, parde@gmail.com, and I'll send you that for free. But Bill Tierney's book is basically, breaks down the signs, helps you to get to know them on a deeper level. And then in the second half of the book, he has, it's kind of like comparing the signs, and I find this just as valuable. And it also starts to teach you aspects, basically. So, signs that square, signs that oppose, signs that sextile, signs that semi-sextile. So you kind of start to get a feeling for what the signs think of each other, so to speak, and how they differ from each other, how they have different modes and ways of being. So this really helped me in terms of just getting more of a bone level feel for each sign and getting an idea of what its energy was about and how it expresses. So, all around the Zodiac, Bill Tierney, number 4. We're doing great. Oh, 8 minutes in. Time flies. But almost halfway through. So, now we're going to get into some other books that I wouldn't necessarily call my top choices in terms of these are the ones that I absolutely recommend or I learned from myself, but kind of ones that will show you more different things if you want to kind of keep diving into one thing specifically. This is one that I learned from, though, and another astrologer that I deeply respect is Tom Jacobs. And this book has been out for a really long time, too, and Tom has a whole number of books. Tom works with, I think he calls it evolutionary astrology, or, I think he would call it evolutionary astrology. He focuses a lot on the nodes and on Pluto. And it helps you to go really deep into, if you're not familiar with the nodes yet, if you're really just getting started with astrology and you have no idea what I'm talking about with the nodes, then I have another book that I'll recommend for you in a minute. But it has to do with your life's journey in terms of karma, past karma that you still need to work out, and tendencies that you have from how you grew up or from past lives, if you believe in past lives, and then gives you some suggestions for how you might move forward. But the other beautiful thing about evolutionary astrology and understanding sort of the astrology of karma, so to speak, is that it can help you to understand why you get stuck where you get stuck and why you find yourself replaying certain roles or ways of being over and over again. So if that kind of thing interests you, if you want to go deeper into understanding your karma and how to work it out, or to understand the karmic roles that you have a tendency to play, this is a great one. And like I said, Tom has a number of books. You could certainly keep diving deeper even after this one. So, like I told you, if you're not familiar with the nodes at all, the North Node and the South Node, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, start with this one. Or, if you do know what the nodes are, but you just want a deeper understanding of them, kind of like I recommended this book for a deep dive into the signs, this is a deep dive into the nodes. So, Jan Spiller will give you, let's see here, I want to say like 20 pages on each of the North Node and South Node combinations. So this is really beautiful in terms of, again, when we're talking about nodes, we're talking about the soul's deep history. We're talking about karmic patterns and tendencies that we've had for, at the very minimum, if you don't believe in lifetimes, that we come back lifetime after lifetime, then at the very least you've had these tendencies from childhood. Like maybe from your ancestry, your family history. So the nodes can have like some really deep sticky karma in the South Node part, but also gifts and gifts and GIFTS. And then in the North Node, we have a direction, a purpose, something that we're learning, but that doesn't always come easily to us. And there's a lot more I could say about that. But she'll give you like a better perspective if the nodes are something that's tripping you up, and maybe you read like the Amy Herring book, but you just barely kind of have an idea of what's going on with the nodes. Follow it up with this one. One thing I think would be lovely if I didn't mind this video being like twice as long or longer, I would actually read excerpts from each of these authors to give you a feeling for their writing style, because the authors that I'm recommending, I really do love their writing style, but I would say especially the Bill Tierney and the Jan Spiller, they're just allowing you to go in depth, and the writing is just really beautiful and evocative. Okay, so now we've got 3 more that I'm going to say are kind of honorable mentions, and one of the reasons I'm calling them honorable mentions is because these next 2, I haven't necessarily deep dived into myself, but I really see a value and a purpose of them. And I think they would be great and accessible for anyone, including beginners. So I would still like to share them, even if they haven't been the backbone of my own personal practice. All right, so one of the reasons I got to mention this one is, I did have a friend who is now a student who this was the first astrology book he picked up. But also just Demetra George is a giant in astrology. She's been around for many decades and worked first with modern astrology and more recently with ancient astrology. Now, all of the books that I've been recommending are coming from a modern astrology perspective, except for the next one that I'm going to mention. But this is just, if you're looking for more of a workbook style way to understand your chart, this is the one that I would recommend. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Demetra is really great at her workbook style. First of all, she just lays out, there we go, lots of tables and diagrams that kind of give you an idea of what's even happening in the chart really clearly. So it's a wonderful breakdown to help you understand all the essential things that are making up the chart. And then here we go. Yeah, you can fill in, look up your chart, then fill in the workbook and journal. about each of these different placements. And another thing that's kind of cool and unique compared to the other books that I've recommended is that she goes into not just the planets, but also asteroids. A lot of Demetra's earlier work had to do with asteroids as well. And look, you're getting a whole page of description, and then you're filling out the workbook section. So this is another great one if you like that workbook style, and also if you're curious about the asteroids. Later in the book, she even will give you a way of like breaking down aspects. So it's another one of the books that actually would help you to process what's going on with aspects and stuff like that after you get past just signs and houses and planets. Okay. So the next book, as I mentioned, I'm mentioning mostly modern astrology books, psychological astrology, 20th century based astrology here. But there are much, much older roots, and we could talk about that for a long time or in a separate video. Because really ancient astrology is having a resurgence, and there are a lot of different techniques involved in it. But this is a book that I actually picked up in Salem last year that I think, as you can see, it says The Magic of Traditional Astrology, the Art Cosmic. So I think this one is a nice, accessible, if you're coming to astrology as a magical practitioner or someone who is interested in magic as well, and you're interested in astrology for like ceremonial uses or to invoke the planets and to have a conversation with them that way, this book is kind of more centered around that. And in terms of traditional astrology, it does give you some perspectives from that are more historical. How these planets have been approached in the past. I love even how the tables just have this kind of like older feeling to them. And there's also kind of like a guided journey for each of the planets when you first meet them. But the thing that's really interesting about this is it does not include the outer planets at all. And by outer planets we mean like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They're not included because we're taking a traditional traditional astrology perspective here. So Sun, Moon, and the first 7 planets, with Saturn being the last one, are what are included here. But like I said, there's lots of magical suggestions about like what is the meaning and approach for each of these planets, and how would they traditionally be worked with, and how might we work with them in our modern practice. And it does talk about planetary conditions a bit, which is the kind of language and approach that is used a lot in ancient astrology, but some of it carries over to modern astrology. Like planetary conditions can mean, is the planet does the planet rule the sign, or is it weaker in the sign? Basically, like if it's in its fall or in detriment, then it's weaker. So it'll go into that kind of thing too. Yeah. And it does actually talk about working with the chart as a whole a little bit. Maybe not in as complete of a way as the other books that I've mentioned, but again, if you're looking for a more magical approach, like literally magical, right? We've got lots of magical symbols and ritual suggestions here. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, the Art Cosmic. And then last but not least, we're coming on to 20 minutes. I'm actually kind of proud of myself for only taking a couple minutes for each one. Last but not least, I will mention the book that I have been reading and that I mentioned in my last video a couple months ago, which is Cosmos and Psyche. Now, this book, I I'm recommending books for beginners. It is not a beginner's book in terms of like something that's just easy breezy approachable, but it is a beginner's book in terms of if you don't mind a deep dive, a historical and philosophical and archetypal deep dive, then this book doesn't assume any prior knowledge of astrology. So you can learn as you go. And this book is, I would really recommend for people who want to get an idea of where astrology is even coming from. Maybe you're more skeptical, or maybe you're just interested in how astrology interacts with cultural and historical periods. That's really what this book is all about. So it'll talk about things like the long cycles of Uranus and Pluto and how they popped up in certain configurations again and again during revolutionary times. And yeah, it's really fascinating in terms of exploring how the archetypal planetary combinations mirror our own personal experience and also our wider cultural experience. Yeah, it's a beautiful book for that. And by the way, if you are interested in reading Cosmos and Psyche and you didn't see my video a couple months ago, but you still want to read it and talk about it, again, just drop me an email, that would probably be the easiest way. Drop me an email at jennifer.parde, Parde, @gmail.com. And you're still welcome to join the Discord server, and you'll see like all the past chats that we've had as we read each chapter. We're currently on the 4th section, so we're not even quite halfway through, I think. Yeah, we're not halfway through yet. So, you might be starting a little behind us, but you can always just join in the conversation and see what other people have said, and you are welcome to do that if you would like to do that. So, yeah, I hope this has been helpful for you guys. It is one of the things that people ask me the most, as you might imagine, like, what should I read if I want to learn how to do astrology or learn about how to work with my own chart. So yeah, I hope these recommendations help you guys to get started. If you have any favorite astrology books, let me know in the comments, or if you decide to read one of these, let me know how you like it, if you have read one of these. And if you do want to go deeper and want to continue the conversation, I do teach lessons, astrology lessons, and I give consults. So you can email me about that too, jennifer.parde@gmail.com, or just visit my website at www.jenniferparde.com. And yeah, I'd be happy to set up a consult for you or talk to you about lessons, or if you just want to join the Discord and chat with people about astrology, whether it's Cosmos and Psyche or just generally, you're welcome to ping me for that too and just join the conversation. So I hope you have found this helpful. Definitely going to try and come back more often and make more videos about astrology, and also share some more creative videos, either combining music and astrology, my two biggest passions, or finding creative ways to express. I did an elemental series last year in which I talked about some of the elements and created a special like musical kind of video for the element of earth. And I've been wanting to create a video about the element of water, so at some point perhaps I will do that. That brings together my creative and astrological passions. But until then, I will see you guys later. Drop a note in the comments about what you're reading astrologically, and I will hopefully see you again soon. Bye for now.